What's going on? It's time for another video. This is going to be the breakdown of Star Wars Battlefront, and I'm going to give you details on actually everything that's in this game, content wise, the different modes, the different scenarios. Does it have any kind of single player gameplay? Does it have multiplayer only? We'll get into all of that in this review, and we'll break down should you buy Star Wars Battlefront and for what platform, and what I think of the performance on each and every platform, and what version is best to get or avoid, rent, or not buy. So let's get into this review, and hopefully this will be helpful, and you guys will let me know what you think in the comment section. Let's go. The story of Star Wars Battlefront is traditionally the story of the Star Wars universe, so it's way too much details to get into. As you know, the 7th movie is coming out, and this game takes place over the course of all of the movies, as you can tell from playing it. Now, so what I'll do is just give you the basic logistics of the situation. You play as the Imperials, and you either try to stop the Rebels, which you either play as an Imperial soldier or iconic characters from the series who are technically the bad guys, or you play as the Rebels and you play as legendary heroes such as Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and Princess Leia, amongst others. Of course, you have Darth Vader, you have the Emperor Palatine, or Palatine, depending on how you pronounce it, and of course Boba Fett, and you have the multiple other warriors, or should I say soldiers, who fight against one another for various different reasons. Of course, like I said, there's a lot to get into in that. So in the sense of, let's just say you either play as the good guy or the bad guy in this game, and you do get to play as iconic characters versus other iconic characters. So let's get into the rest of the game without spoiling anything, because there's actually nothing to spoil, because the story is traditionally, if you've seen Star Wars, that's the story of the game, because there is no story or campaign. So all I can do is tell you why the multiplayer is happening. Controls for Star Wars Battlefront are traditionally what I like to see in a first-person shooter, but what makes this even better for me is the fact that it's first-person shooter slash third-person shooter. Now, I prefer third-person shooters over first-person shooters traditionally, so I'm very happy with the fact that they give you a choice. But what makes the controls of this game even better is the simple fact that whenever a game attempts to do first person and third person together and have it in the FPS world, it tends to usually gravitate towards one more than the other. Now, you would think from that automatically the first person sector of the game is what it gravitates more towards. But me being a person that prefers third person, I actually feel like the third person is just as on point as the first person as far as the layout and the field of view, because some people will argue that that is the difference here, but me, however, it's just something about third person that just feels better to me. I like to see my character's gun and where it's pointing. I feel like it gives me a better sense of aim and understanding of what I'm pointing my gun at. So for games like this, I traditionally prefer the third person view over the first person view. Now, I'm not saying one is better than the other, it's just my preference, is what I like. So for people who like third person games, this actually does feel like a real true third person game. You can set the control by pressing down on the D-pad on any controller to third person, and you will not even realize it's a first person game. You can play the entire game and never have a reason to switch to first person. So that alone made me like the control scheme right away. Now, of course, as far as the buttons, you have the traditional trigger. Left trigger is to aim down the sights, right trigger is to shoot. You know, you have your modified features where you get what's called something traditionally known as burn cards from Titanfall, but I won't call them burn cards because that means that they go away. You get perks and you unlock abilities, and you set them to the controller, and depending on where you set them, you have those buttons laid out. Whereas if you get the jetpack, you can set it to your right trigger or your left trigger, and when you press that button, you will execute a jumping jetpack effect and feature in the game where you fly, of course, for a limited time with your jetpack. Or you can actually set a grenade there, or you can actually set something like a special attack from your rifle where it'll boost the attack or make it rapid fire or keep it from cooling down. There's a lot of features and perks in the game. I won't get into everyone and break it down in a controller scheme because it's too much to do. However, what I will say is they have a lot to add to make this more than just a traditional Call of Duty, FPS, Battlefield, because a lot of people thought this was like Battlefield, and I feel like it's not. They have a lot of features that make this distinctive to Star Wars and make you feel like you're in the Star Wars universe, not skins of Star Wars over Battlefield and you're playing Battlefield with Luke Skywalker. It's not like that at all. This control scheme is unique to Star Wars. So they did a great job of actually laying it out, and I like everything about the way the controller scheme is set up. So if you're a guy with a mouse and keyboard, you should like this. If you're a controller guy, you should like this. They set it up pretty well. I do admit DICE did a great job of setting up the control scheme for the action and the way that it's unique from the other DICE games. Kudos to them on the controls. I have no complaints, especially at how well they did third person. I really like that a lot. It made me enjoy the game a lot more. Okay, for the feature section, I'm going to break down what's actually available in the game, because a lot of people didn't know what was going on due to the beta. Now, if you played the beta, you were only able to access about 3 modes, if I'm not mistaken. But here's the full list of content available to you guys, so you can make a decision for yourself if you think this is worthy of buying. Me personally, I actually enjoyed the game. I like the game a lot, and I think it's worth buying. I'm just going to say that up front, but I'm going to break this down for you so you can decide for yourself if you think this is worth buying. Okay, so as you can see from this video now, what's playing in the background, you have the multiplayer section, which is anywhere between 6 minimum to 40 max players, and a lobby depending on the game mode that you pick, and we'll get into that of course. And then you have missions. Now for you people who didn't think there was anything for campaign, there's actually missions you can play offline by yourself, or you can play these with people, but you're not necessarily going versus people, but this is you against AI, and it's sort of a campaignish type of thing. So let's get into what it is, and I'll break it down for you. Okay, so you have the missions here. You have your first mission, which is training, which of course is what it says here. Training missions enable players to learn the ways of the Force, pilot X-Wings, air speeders, ATs, and speeder bikes. Now honestly, you should definitely do this, because what's going to happen is you're going to be very confused when you come across vehicles in this game. I came across the first vehicle in this game and got slaughtered because I had no clue what I was doing. So of course you have training here to help you to figure out how to do that. And then of course, let's move right along. You have battles. Now I'll break down what exactly is available in this mode as well. Okay, in battles you have 4 types. Okay, so I'll get into what specifically is available here. You have Hero, Battle of Hoth, and then you have Battle of Hoth. Now the difference between the 2 modes in particular, what you're looking at, is that one is where you play as one of the soldiers and you go against the other type. Like if you pick the Imperial, you'll go against the Rebels. If you pick the Rebels, you go against the Imperials. The difference between Hero is, of course, is what it says. You get to play as one of the main characters in the series and go against the opposing team. As you see, that's Princess Leia right there in the picture. Princess Leia can actually be picked. You can pick Princess Leia, you can pick Han Solo, or you could pick Luke Skywalker, and I'm gonna let you know now that shit is dope. And then you have the Battle of Tatooine. Now the Battle of Tatooine is the same story. You have the regular battle, and then you have the hero version, where, as you see from the picture, you can play as Boba Fett, you can play as Boba Fett, Darth Vader, or the Emperor himself. And I'm letting you know now, that gets real crazy. I like that. That's very much fun. Of course, you can play one of these modes. Not only can you play one of these modes, when you get into the mode, you can also select the difficulty, and you can decide whether you want to play solo with somebody in your house with you on split screen, or you can play with a partner online. So there is co-op available for this mode as well. So you can pick those things, and of course, depending on what difficulty you pick, you get different credits towards your multiplayer campaign as well, as far as building up your multiplayer character to go online and play with your soldier. So those are the modes available for the people who were wondering about single player campaigns. Now for those of you who think that's actually a lot, we're not done. You also have another mode available called survival. Now in survival mode, the simple thing here is exactly what it says. You have to survive against waves of enemies, and if you survive, of course, you get rewarded by getting points that will help you build up your multiplayer character as well. So this is one of the other modes that's available to you too, for those of you who don't want to just go play multiplayer, or you were wondering if they had content outside of just a simple multiplayer, team deathmatch, traditional stuff like that. Okay, so let's get into the multiplayer section of the game. When you come to the multiplayer section and you click on it, of course, you're going to get invited to a hub, and when you come to the hub, you will have all of your various different modes. Now overall, you have about 9 different modes available to you. I'm sure more will probably be added as DLC, or more content will be added to these modes. So let's get into these modes, because what I found interesting about the different modes in the game, which was actually pretty good, is all of these modes are essentially different games that you may have played, or a game that you may like, and they have a mode available in the Star Wars universe that actually is that game. Now take for instance this mode, and I'm going to play some footage for you to see for yourself. Hero Hunt. Hero Hunt is pretty much the game Evolved. If you played Evolved and it was 4 hunters versus a monster, this is the same thing here. Hero Hunt is where you play as one person, either good or bad, and you go against the opposing team. And this is amazing to me, because this one mode alone, you can play this and this is the Evolved entire game. Now this is not a shot at 2K's Evolved or anything, but this is just to show you how complex the actual content is in Star Wars, because there's a lot of content in this game, or I really didn't know that this was here. So you have that mode, you have the hub, you have all of these different things going on. Okay, so let's get into the different modes that you have available. Okay, you have Supremacy. Supremacy is what it says: drive the enemy off the planet in all-out warfare. So this is pretty much where it's 40 people and you're playing against one another, and of course you know you have your traditional team deathmatch going on, where it's everybody out for themselves, one team against the other, rebels against the Imperial. Then you have the next mode, which is another mode you might remember. It's called Walker Assault. Massive Imperial walkers descend on the rebel stronghold in an epic game of attack and defend. So this was one of the modes that was also available in the beta. So a lot of you may know this mode. This is where you see people fighting against one another and the vehicles are involved. Usually those big ATs and those flying X-Wings and stuff like that. So that's that mode that you remember from the beta. And then you have Fighter Squadron, which is a new mode available to the full game. Hop into your starfighter and dominate the sky. So this is pretty much for you people that were complaining about not going into space. There is a mode, however, where you take it to the vehicle. This mode is also 20 players. Then you have Blast. Defeat more enemies than the other team to win the battle. Then you have Cargo. Steal the enemy cargo while protecting your own. Then you have Drop Zone. Capture more drop pods than the other team to win, and you remember that definitely being in the beta, of course. Then you have Droid Run, fast-paced action with 3 moving droids to capture and hold. So you know that's like a capture the flag type of scenario. You have Hero Hunt, play as a single player against a squadron. I broke that down to you guys already. Then you have Heroes vs Villains, which is 12 players, and this mode is actually pretty fun, because this is where you get to break out the stars of Star Wars and go head to head. You, like I said, Rebels, Imperials, Luke versus Darth Vader pretty much. And this is a fun mode because you get to use all special abilities. You don't have to worry about leveling up your characters. You just get to go ham and have a good time. So as you see, essentially there's 9 modes available in the full game, and this is just the multiplayer section. And then you have, of course, 8 modes available to you on the single player side, not to mention the survival, which has another 6 modes. So there's pretty much a lot of content to keep you busy with the game. So hopefully these features were enough for you to understand what's in the game content wise. Now I'll move on to the graphics and the should you buy it outro. Graphics. Okay, in this day and age, I feel like when I do a review, I should not have a graphics section of my review. But unfortunately, because of the differences when you get multi-plat games, this is needed to explain the graphical aspects of what you may get depending on what platform you pick this game for. With Star Wars Battlefront, this is particularly the case. There is a tier system to the game, and I'm going to break it down. You get a choice between either higher resolutions and unstable frame rates, or stable frame rates and lower resolution. Now what I mean by that is PC excluded. The good news first is on all 3 platforms you do get 60 frames per second. However, when it comes to the frame rate, PlayStation seems to suffer as far as stability when it comes to the frame rate due to the fact that it has a 900p resolution. Now don't get me wrong, the frame rate is in no means, shape, form, or fashion bad. However, it's not as stable as the Xbox One is. Xbox went for a locked frame rate. With that being said, they traded off on resolution. Xbox gives you 720p. Arguably the PlayStation 4 version does look better. However, the frame rate is very important when it comes to a game that primarily focuses on multiplayer gaming. Now, is it horrible? No. Is it something that's very noticeable? No. However, it is not as on par as the Xbox version. Now, here's where the problem comes in, as resolution is more noticeable and the Xbox One version does look slightly less appealing than the PlayStation version. Unfortunately, I can notice a difference between 1080p and 720p. And I also noticed the difference between 900p and 720p. Now, there's people who argue with me and tell me all the time because they know I do reviews. They don't see it, they can't tell. I tell them all the time, it's usually your display. I miss the days when I was a peasant, and I'm not calling you guys a peasant, but I kind of am. I miss the days when I couldn't tell. Now I can tell the difference, and I'm totally spoiled. As far as resolution, of course, PC is king, giving you anything between 2160p and up. There's nothing to talk about there. It looks beautiful. The game looks amazing on all platforms, don't get me wrong. Xbox version even looks good. I enjoyed it. I played it. That's where I got most of the content for the review from, to finalize this review, to make sure I knew exactly what was going on with the game. And I honestly said it is a very enjoyable experience. Remember, you get a stable 60 frames per second. And that is very hard to come by on these consoles. So that is something amazing to see. The frame rate is extremely solid on the Xbox One version. So it does have a performance advantage, as we're coming to see in these games going down the line. Graphically, if you had to choose between a console version, you would have to pick the PS4 version hands down. But if you want performance and you care more about that, and you're an enthusiast as far as being competitive, then you definitely want to go with the Xbox One version of this game. As far as getting best of both worlds, of course, you want to go with the PC, which has stable resolution and stable frame rates depending on your hardware, and only you know it's in your PC. So with that being said, graphically, I am very disappointed that we still see 720p in the year 2015 going into 2016. However, it does not look bad. The lighting effects, the textures, everything looks pretty good, but on the Xbox you just see a big difference. You see a lot of jagged edges and things like that, pixelation, and I just feel like in this day and age we should not see that. So for console, I'm gonna say graphically go for PS4, and for performance go for Xbox One. If you want the best of both worlds, you have to pick PC. But unfortunately for me, if I had to pick a console version, because it's Star Wars, I'm gonna go for the graphics and a little bit less of a stable frame rate, because it's not that noticeable, and say that I would pick the PS4 version. So let's move on. Overall, Star Wars Battlefront has a lot of good things going for itself, and it also has some bad things. There's still a lot of things about this game that are happening that I actually just don't like, and a lot of other people will agree with me. Not having voice chat in the game is something that's really annoying. When I first played it on PC, I thought that that was just because I was on PC and I had to use a third-party software to get this done. But when I played it on Xbox and PlayStation, I was stunned and shocked to see that this is something they just did not add. They skipped over it. Now, a lot of you guys know on my channel, I get on people's case a lot about not using a mic and a headset, and I feel like this is one of the reasons why. Because of the way it was used before, it was something that was skipped over now. However, it should be something that we have a choice between whether or not we use it. Also, the extensive and expensive price for the DLC expansion pass really is something that worries me. I'm not comfortable with paying so much money for something and I don't know what I'm getting. They already have DLC slated to come out on December 8th, which is amazing to me, because they want you to pay for something you don't know what you're going to get. How do we know we're not going to get a situation where the game even works or performs properly? So there's things like that. But however, it is Star Wars and it's true to the Star Wars theme. If you're somebody that has any inclination of being a fan of Star Wars, you're gonna like it. Now, if you're somebody that's into the Battlefront series, you may have issues because it's not like that at all. This is a reboot of the original Battlefront 1 and 2. This is not Battlefront 3 as a lot of people would think. So you got to come to this with a whole new perspective and take everything you had about Battlefront off the table and start all over. With that being said, however, me being somebody that played it, I really much enjoy it. This is not like Battlefield Hardline or Battlefield 5 where people think this is Battlefield reskin with Star Wars themes. This is not that at all. I like a lot of things about the third person versus the first person. You can even play Call of Duty style, Battlefield style, or you can play The Last of Us style, which is something I prefer. So there's a lot of good things about the game. As far as content, they do have a lot of content available to those of you who don't want to play multiplayer. They may not have a campaign, but however, they do have a lot of content that will keep you busy. I played for hours offline, just playing by myself against the AI in various maps, because I was just enjoying the Star Wars theme that much. That alone makes this game worth getting to me. However, I'm going to break down other things. You have the multiplayer, which has at least 9 modes that I can tell right now, and I don't know if they're gonna add more, but between the 9 multiplayer modes and the various other modes, you have 8 plus 6, so you have about 12 modes. You have single player, which has roughly anywhere between 6 modes on one side and 8 modes on another. Then you have the multiplayer, which has 9 modes. So altogether, you have roughly shortly under 20 modes in the game, and it will keep you busy. Some of these modes are so well put together that they actually will take the place of games you may have played before them. I was shocked when I seen one mode actually took the place of a whole game like Evolved. It just blew my mind with the thought that came into it. They knew what they were doing when DICE made this game. So overall, I am gonna say, yes, I think you should buy this. Should you rent it? Maybe you should, but here's the thing about renting the game. It's a multiplayer game and it's meant to be capped. It's meant to be leveled up. So yes, I would recommend buying this over renting it. And I do actually think it's a pretty good game. Me being a person who initially had concerns with the fact that it had no campaign at all and it was Star Wars. I really would have liked to have seen that. But they gave you some nice fun things to do that will make you still feel like you're a part of the Star Wars universe, whether it be through the hero, the villain, or one of the troopers. This is your boy Jimmybgaming, and this is my review for Star Wars Battlefront for PC, PS4, and Xbox One. Leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know what you think if you're getting this game. And if you have any questions, as usual, leave them in the comment section below. And subscribe to my channel to help me grow and do more videos like this. And of course, to get more game reviews, gameplays, and things of that nature. So it's your boy Jimmybgaming. I'm out of here. Peace. Video going up. That's going to be a new segment on my channel where I do suggestions on what people should get or use accessory wise for their gaming. So hopefully you guys mess with me on that. I'm gonna have like accessories for PC gaming, PlayStation, Xbox, and even Nintendo if that comes up. I currently do not own a Nintendo, so for you people that do Nintendo, I apologize, I don't have it, so I don't feel like I should get up here and talk about stuff I don't know. I'd rather do that than talk about shit from the perspective like how people say, oh, that's crap, that's garbage, and they don't own it. So since I don't own a Nintendo, I don't feel like it's my place to talk about Nintendo, good or bad, because everything I'm saying is just an opinion, and I like to have some kind of factual, information or tangible object in front of me when I'm talking about something, rather than just going based off what other people are saying.